Hey guys, Daniel's son. Welcome back to the channel, and we have a 1976 Fiat 124 Spider. Now, some of you are actually coming from the Car Wizard channel because Wizard just made a video on this car, and on the video he said that we're going to turbo the car. Yes, we are going to turbo the car right on this channel, so let's go ahead and get started. So yes, we're going to go ahead and put a turbo on this car, and you might be asking why. This thing looks like it needs a restoration from what you can see so far. Well, you haven't seen anything yet, and yes, you are right. Honestly, a restoration would be ideal before we even touch the engine. Now, what is the purpose of this car? The purpose of this car is actually to EFI it. We want to EFI, put a turbo on it, put a standalone, because the main reason is I want to learn how to tune. Now, as you guys know, I actually did all the wiring and the installation of the first standalone on the Ferrari 308, Car Wizard's 308. Even though the car ran and idled and it was actually pretty much okay, nobody could really tune that ECU because it was old technology. Nobody wanted to deal with it, and I didn't feel comfortable tuning a car of that caliber. So Wizard and I were talking, and the conversation came up about me tuning. You know, I told him how I was passionate about it. I've been studying it for a while. I've tuned some cars before, but I really haven't had enough practice. Now, at the time of the conversation, I was in the process of buying a car, but I fell through. So Wizard decided, hey, why don't I buy a car? Why don't I give you the funds to be able to turbo it, EFI it, put the standalone ECU of your choice, and tune it? And I was like, perfect. And then he said, you can film it on your channel and stuff like that. I'll film it some of my channel to kind of cover the cost of the whole build and the car and all that stuff, and just go ahead and build it. Now, obviously, we're not going to buy an expensive car. We're not going to throw all the money into this car because it's a practice car. This car could blow up if I don't know what I'm doing. Obviously, I'm trying my best not to, but it's a definite possibility. Now, this part right here is where things get a little complicated. So that car that I was in the process of buying, that kind of the sale went through, after this car got bought and this idea came up, then the car came back, the other car that I was buying. And I'm going to leave it a mystery for this video, but I'm going to make a video on that car specifically. Now I have two projects. I have this one and the other car. Now, I'm definitely hoping that all this work and all these cars and projects turn into good videos for you guys to enjoy. So definitely wish me luck. Definitely let me know in the comments, cheer me on, because it's going to be a lot of work. Okay, so before we continue, I got to do a shout out for Mrs. Wizard. So Mrs. Wizard, she lent me a GoPro because I was working on Hoovie's Testarossa. Definitely check the video. It's definitely out for that. And I'm doing a dash removal on that car. Now, I am filming stuff like that, and she lent me that GoPro, so I was able to film it. Now, I took the GoPro home, and I pulled all my footage and all that stuff. And randomly, Wizard texted me and said, hey, Mrs. Wizard said, keep the camera. And I was like, what? I can just have it for free? She gave me a camera, some batteries, and an SD card, and a gimbal for the camera. So I'm hoping that I can get some of the attachments or whatever, or mounts that I need to be able to shoot some extra footage for you guys. So definitely a big shout out. Go to her channel, say thank you. I don't know, just definitely want to, I really appreciate that a lot. Now, before I open the hood, go ahead and subscribe, like the video, and share it with anybody who might be interested in this stuff. And let's go ahead. So right here we have the 1.8 liter dual overhead cam, carbureted 4-cylinder. Yes, it is carbureted. It's right underneath this air intake is obviously the carburetor. And as you can see, if we go all the way over here, there is no turbo. And we're going to be fixing that. Now, the other thing too is this ignition system. You got the coil and distributor, and then these condensers right here. That indicates that this has contact points in there, which again, this engine does run. I don't know if I mentioned that on the video, but this engine does run. And we're probably going to be eliminating that stuff and adding the turbo, and then also adding injectors and stuff like that. So this engine should look fairly different. Something else that you might have noticed is it is extremely, extremely dirty. All that oil is getting on the timing belt and all that stuff. Yeah, this car needs a lot of loving before we can even EFI it and turbo it. Now, here's a list of some of the things that we need to take care of before we EFI this car, before we put a turbo on it. It needs to be a little bit safer than what it is right now. Now, I don't know if you've noticed on the name, I've decided to call it Turbo. It's a very appropriate name for this car, so definitely let me know in the comments if you like that name for this project. So let's start with the brakes. This car has no brakes. They don't work. So we need to replace all 4 calipers, all 4 rotors, lines, and pads, possibly even a master cylinder. Now there's a couple things wrong with the drive shaft. The main one is that there's an isolator that connects the transmission to the drive shaft. It's like a rubber donut that kind of absorbs some of that impact whenever you stop and go. That thing is shredded. Obviously we need a new one, because if that breaks completely, it'll separate the drive shaft from the transmission, especially if we're running almost double the horsepower here. Now the other part of the drive shaft that's bad is the carrier bearing. There is a bearing in the middle of the drive shaft that kind of helps it from slopping around. It's to prevent deflection on higher torque and speeds. So yes, we need to replace those two. That should take care of the drive shaft, hopefully. We need to do a fresh timing belt, bearings, pump, everything. We need to take care of that, and obviously that comes with a coolant flush. So we have to take care of that, because the last thing we need after we finish and we start actually pushing the car, having that oil-soaked timing belt snap. And the next thing is tires. Yes, we need brand new tires. The tires are rotted. They're halfway flat. I would not try to step on this car with these tires. It would not be pretty. Now, if you've noticed, the list is kind of short, and that's because most of the work is going to be done on this second list. Now, the second list is going to be in the next video, and it's going to go into more detail on the stuff that we need to replace and stuff that's going to be upgraded. Now that we kind of went through all this, let's go ahead and start the car and see how it sounds. You can hear the fuel pump. It's pretty loud. Woo! She sounds good. Now, as you heard, the engine runs fairly okay. Hopefully it'll run better after we tune it and EFI it and go through a few things, maybe some dirty spark plugs. I don't know. Juniorman has worked on this car a little bit, because sometimes he finishes up his work and maybe there's a couple of hours left in the day. So Wizard, instead of sending him home, he gives him a little bit of work just to kind of finish out his day. So he has done a little bit of work on this. We are waiting on parts. He did mess with the carburetor, see if he could get the engine running smoothly, so at least we know we have a good engine. And the other thing that actually I did this part just because I was, just messing around. I decided to polish a piece of the car, just one of the fenders. As you can see here, this is just cleaned up. We just kind of wiped up that white stuff on it, corrosion or staining or whatever the heck that is. And I took some Scratch X and I polished the fender a little bit. And as you can see, some of that seafoam green started to come up. I think this is seafoam green, but I'm not sure. And it's pretty smooth. So I think I might do that with the whole car. We might get some Scratch X or polish or whatever you would use to do that. I'm not very familiar with paint correction. And we might just go through the car and clean it all up. So real quick, like I was saying earlier, I am working on Hoovy's Testarossa. I am removing the dash. I'm working on that video. I will release it as soon as I put the dash back in. So definitely stay tuned for that video. It's been a lot of fun so far. And yeah, maybe I'll give you, actually, let me give you a little preview. Right here, we have some of the stuff. So some of the leather stuff that we removed. And then down here, right there, down there, that's all the wiring that we took out. That's old 90s electronics or whatever. So yeah, we removed a lot of that stuff. Well, that way. We removed a lot of that stuff out of that car, including those little things right there. So I guess that really wraps up the first video on the Fiat. Now in the second video, we're going to talk about that second list, stuff that we're upgrading, what are we using, what turbo we're going to use. We're going to go deeper into the build. I'm also going to show you a few things that you have to do whenever you're building, tuning a car, some mathematical equations. Not going to go too deep into that because it tends to be boring, but I'm going to show you what I did to figure out what turbo size is for this car and stuff like that. Now go ahead and let me know in the comments if you're excited about this build. I know that some people might not like these cars getting modified and stuff like that, but this car, in my opinion, is too far gone. The money to restore this car, you can just get a nice, clean, restored or preserved version of this car and you're going to be way happier with this. This thing is completely rusted out. It needs so much work. It's just not worth it. These cars are not worth enough where a restoration, it's worth the money. It's better to just build something fun, enjoy it. The last few years this car has on its body. And that's pretty much it. Just enjoy it until the wheels fall off. Now, as always, guys, I really want to say thank you for you guys watching the video, supporting the channel. Sometimes I've ran into some of you guys, and you guys will say hi and recognize and say they follow the channel. And I really appreciate that because I feel so underserving of that. So I really want to say thank you, and I really appreciate that. Now, on that note, I will see you on the next video.